Hello, if you've been here before, welcome back. If not, hi, my name is David. I make videos talking about media that I want to talk about. This is my review of the books that I read in the month of May, all the books that I read in this month, and just talking about how I thought about them. I've already made videos for the months of March and April, so go check those out if you so desire as well. Big spoiler alerts for all of these books, just in case. And let's get into it. The first book that I finished this month was The Best American Science Fiction and Fantasy of 2015, edited by Joe Hill, series edited by John Joseph Adams. It's a short story anthology that has 20 short stories in them, and I don't want to talk much about this because it's really good. It was a 4 out of 5 stars for me. Loved this book a lot, and I have the next 2016 volumes. I've read the 2019, 2020, 2022, and 2023 volumes. I skipped over 21 for some reason, but I'll catch up. And I'm trying to read through the entire series. And this is the first one of that series. I will have a video talking about this book coming out within the next 2 weeks, I want to say. And I will be able to talk more in depth about this anthology. But yeah, it's really good. Joe Hill, he wrote Horns and Nosferatu, the horror book that has like the license plate of Nosferatu, that one. And yeah, this was a really great anthology, and I will have a longer video discussing this, so keep an eye out for that. The next book I read was Quest by Angie. This is the 4th book of the Septimus Heap franchise. It is a 3.5 out of 5 stars for me. This is the one book that I was looking forward to reading because I was thinking that I remembered the most from this book, but in reality, I didn't. And there were some things that I remembered reading about, but the majority of it, I was like, this is really new. And at this point, I was like, you know what? The last 3 books, this book, I was surprised about how much I did not remember about. So let me just keep moving forward with the series, reading it as if it was the first time I've read it, because I truly do not remember the vast majority of the series. But this one is good. I liked it. It is a 3.5 out of 5 stars for me because I was honestly expecting more, especially with the quest and everything. And because the last book ended with 2 characters stuck in the past, and so obviously this book was going to deal with that to save them. And it was interesting. I really like the world building. I really like the magical aspect of the world that they have to go to. Let me show you the map, because all of these books have a form of a map. Like the first book had the official map of like the town, the castle that they live in. The second book had like the Outlands, the Badlands. The third book had the past map or the map of the past. And this book had the quest that they go on, which is really fun. And I did like when they were in this space, but it took a long time for us to get there. And this book, I mean, it looks big. It's 400 odd chapters, but the text is pretty big as well. And the space is really small. So I really like fly through these in like 2 days, right? And that's how it's been for the last few books. And it just took a long time for the characters to get to that location. And then once they were there, it was really short. But I really liked it when they were there. So, you know, part of it is like trying not to allow my prior expectations get ahead of me, but also like, yeah, it took some time to get here. But also, the main antagonist, boring. It's an evil dark wizard. I don't like when they go into the dark wizards. I know that the last book, second to last book or something like that, Dark, is about Dom Daniel returning or something like that. And I don't care about those. I like the more interesting, more out of left field antagonists in this world, because this world is already pretty out of left field. And I like that he was a ghost. His last name's Fume. That's all I remember. He was kind of annoying. I liked he was a ghost that was trying to do stuff, and he sort of just pushed the characters into the quest, and I wish it would have been more of a voluntary thing. But yeah, this wizard guy who's the ghost, fine, cool. I don't find myself looking forward to seeing more of him, but he was a fine antagonist for this book. And yeah, honestly, I was just slightly disappointed with it, so it's a 3.5 out of 5 for me. The next book I read was Flowers for the Sea by Zin E. Rocklyn. It's a novella. It's about 100 pages. I read it in like 2 hours. It's a 3.5 out of 5 for me. This is a fine story. I didn't really connect with it, but it's about a woman who is part of this huge ship that is the last people living on the earth because the water levels have risen, and she is all of a sudden pregnant, which she did not plan for, but she was sleeping with like the captain. And then when her baby is born, it's a monster from the sea that she can tell that it's a monster from the sea. And then because she's also been like oppressed and looked down on by the other characters on the ship, it's a very empowering story. And because it was really short, I really can't say that much about it because there wasn't much there. I liked the writing. It was difficult to read. Prose wise, it was dense, but it was good. It's a novella, and I don't tend to read novellas. I had bought the book online because I saw it on sale, and I had wanted to read it in a while ago, I guess. But I never realized it was this short, and so I was like, "Oh, that's really small." And I read it in like a day, and I was like, less than a day, and I was like, "Yeah, it's a novella. I don't read novellas. I prefer short stories that are more where's the book actually short or bigger books." And so a novella to me, I don't want to say it's a waste of my time, but I have other uses of my time to read either larger stories or smaller stories in big packages. You know what I mean? No disrespect to this book. It was really beautiful. Also, it wasn't really for me, which I'm trying to like avoid stories that are not for me because I want to read stories that are for me. But it was just a really beautiful story in and of itself. So kudos to that. But yeah, it's a 3.5 for me for Flowers for the Sea. Also, I don't know where the flowers come in. I may have missed that in the story. I don't know where the flowers come in, but they are in the sea. The horror moments, the moments of horror in this story are pretty good at least, and I did enjoy that. Like tentacles are coming out of like the tentacle right there are coming out of the waters and attacking the ship and stuff like that. And that was pretty fun for me. The next book I read was Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. This is a 4.5 out of 5 stars for me. It was just on the edge of like really good, and I watched the series a while ago on HBO, the limited series, and I loved it so much. And then I saw it on sale online as well, and I was like, you know what? Let me get it. I liked the show, and I liked Gone Girl, the movie. I haven't read the book. I don't think I'll read Gone Girl, but I did like the book in and of itself. And as far as I can remember, it does deviate slightly, but only in like minute scenes in between. I really liked it because it was intense and it felt like things weren't happening because she was the main character. She was just going around talking to different people. And so things didn't really seem to be progressing, but it did. And it felt really natural how everything moved, yet still felt like everything was very slow. And I think that was a really smart way. That's a really interesting way to write this story because it's very plotting. It's very thoughtful about what it wants to say and what it wants to show. And then the moments of terror that happen in between are just like a line or two of like something like terrifying. Oh yeah, the teeth. Those moments were like real surprising all of a sudden reading that, and I'm like, really imaginative way to write this story, and I really did enjoy it. And I'm going to rewatch the show just to like watch it again because I loved this book, and I just wish that it focused more on an investigation than a day-to-day type thing. But that's just me and like what I want to see in these type of genre books. I wanted to see a little bit more action or movement than just talking, but the talking still was really compelling. And so it was on the edge of like loving this book. There's just something I needed a little bit more to enjoy myself, but still amazing read. I read it in like 2.5 days, 3 days, yeah. And it was so good. Oh my God, it was so good. The next book I read was The Man Made of Smoke by Alex North. This is the book of the month for May. Almost said April, it's May. By Alex North. Here it is. Book of the month for May. This is a 4 out of 5 for me. I thought it was really fun to have this adult thriller, right after Smart Objects, because they're very similar in terms of genre, but what they want to do are very different, and I really enjoyed it. And it's about, let me put you here, because you're a hardback. There you go. It's about a main character, Dan, who goes back to his childhood home because his father was reported missing slash dead, and Dan and his father were embroiled when he was younger, when Dan was younger, in a serial killer going around killing people called The Man Made of Smoke. And now, in the present, when he's an adult, things are starting to happen in relation to that murder, and so he's trying to figure out what it is. And I really liked how it was very much like, this is just a man. He's a psychologist. He's doing all this investigation. His father is a retired cop, and he's also doing investigation. And they're both doing, in the story, parallel investigations at different points of time, but like the sections were like alternating between, also with different points of view, which was also really fun. And it's really smart dissemination of information, of like, the dad learns something, the son learns something else, they reach the same conclusion, and then they split off again, and then they reach the same conclusion. And so it's really fun that way, and the progression of the thriller was really fun. I did not quite enjoy the reveal of the murderer. It was a good reveal. I just didn't feel like it pulled off the reveal that well. I don't think there was enough clues in the story to show that, hey, this was the person who actually killed them. And I don't really like how one of the women characters was treated in the story, because she had a really interesting part. Like midway through, she helps break the case for the main character, and then sort of just disappears, and then becomes a damsel in distress in the investigation. I just felt like she was implemented well. She did interesting things. I just did not want her to all of a sudden become a damsel in distress, but you could see that coming from a mile away. I feel like that's a genre trope of adult thrillers, and I'm not an adult thriller lover, but I can definitely tell when things are trying to replicate things in the past. And I just feel like that woman character could have not been a damsel in distress, and could have been part of the action instead of just being trapped and pleading for her life. But either way, it was a really good thriller. I did not know what to expect, and usually I don't really look at thrillers in like, oh, I really need to read this book or whatever. That's not my genre to read. But Sharp Objects and this book, amazing thrillers. At least, are these my first thrillers? I have to think about that. It's been a while since I've read like an adult thriller type thing, and these two really good starters. If that is true, I'd have to look into my memory. The next book I read was Providence by Max Berry. This is a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I honestly think it might be a 5-star book for me. This was amazing. It's a sci-fi book about 4 people who are conscripted into the space army to fight space aliens. And I just came off of like a few past months of, I've read like 4-5 different sci-fi stories that had somewhat similar premises of going into space, and they were almost all YA, young adult science fiction, and I think this is billed as a adult science fiction, and I can definitely tell the difference, because it does a lot to subvert some usual, I guess, YA science fiction tropes, or just science fiction tropes in general, because we have the usual idea of like, hey, you are a group of people going into space to do something special. Let's put you on TV and show you off. And usually the big chunks of the story before they go into space, well, there's a big chunk of the story before they go into space, and then the other chunk is when they're in space. The big chunk before is setting up and showing these characters how they interact with the real world, and like drama and stuff like that, dealing with the media. And that's the big chunk, and then it goes into the chunk when they're in space, and then it sort of continues the drama between the interpersonal relationships. And I find that exhausting. And this book I thought was going to go into that. And then they're like, oh, we're going to deal with the media, and then we're in space. And I was so overjoyed because we didn't have to go through all that. And the interpersonal character relationships, there's only 4 characters, well developed, really cool. I really enjoyed that the characters varied in age, because the YA books that I've read, science fiction YA books that I've read in the past, the oldest was probably like 19 years old, the characters, and I didn't quite enjoy that. The youngest character in this book is 26, the oldest is 44, and I think it's refreshing to see older characters in sci-fi stories, especially because the variety of these characters in this book are so varied, for lack of a better word. Variety of characters are varied. Their stories are really interesting, compelling, and the characters are very, very well written. I just didn't quite enjoy the characters themselves. Personally, I don't like 1 or 2 of them, and because they're so important, I didn't like them specifically, but I can recognize that they were written very, very well. I also like how it decides to jump in time a lot. Like, I think we spend over 2 to 3 years in this book, and that is so interesting, that there's so much time that we do not spend with these characters, yet we still feel empathetic, interested, compelled by these characters, while still having some chunks of time missing from them. A lot of what I like is subverting YA tropes, and usually you would see in these sort of like alien war stories, it's like, oh my god, the aliens are actually misunderstood and nice, and we must be friends with the aliens. And this book said, nah, kill them, bitches. And I was really happy about that, because I think that, having those stories where the aliens are actually good, you look back at the moments where they are killing, you can't really root for the characters to survive. But here in this book, the aliens, bad. They are bad, so we can kill them, and that's fun. And is it right? I don't know, but it's fun, and I think I prefer that over the ambiguity of, is this ethically correct or not? You know what I mean? The aliens are horrible, bad, and evil, and they get to kill them, and that's fun. And also great to see the characters try to deal with this situation, to deal with these aliens in a way that is allowing them to not be restrained by ethics. Is that weird to say? I don't know. And yeah, I would say this is a nearly 5 out of 5 star book for me. It is 4.5 right now, because I don't quite like the characters personally, and also I would think that all of these books that I have in the shelf here, the 5.5 out of 5 stars, I constantly think about. After I finished the book, I didn't really think about this again. It's missing a little bit of zhuzh, and I think because it avoids interpersonal relationships that are dramatic and romantic, and supplements them with realistic dramatics. I'm missing at least the romantic aspect, because the main character, loved him. He was neurodivergent, but they never said that. I wish he kissed a boy. I wish he kissed someone else. I needed a little bit. I don't want to say I needed spice, but I needed it to be zhuzhed up a bit and drag it up, please. And then I would think highly of you. But still really well written. But yeah, I needed the main character, the neurodivergent guy, to kiss another boy, because I think that would have made me keep thinking about this book past after reading it. But still, amazing. The last book that I read, asterisk, we'll get to the asterisk, but the last book that I read of this month was Hella by David Gerrold. And this one is a 3 out of 5 stars from me. This is another YA science fiction that I found myself not liking the YA science tropes. And, looking at this quest, the asterisk that I'll talk about, there are some books, and I'm like, you know what? I am starting to realize there are some books that are just not for me, and I gotta find the books that are for me, like Providence. But anyways, Hella is about this other planet that humans have discovered and begin to colonize, and it's set all within the colony itself, Hela, the planet, and they're dealing with like political issues there and like dealing with the environment, stuff like that. And the first half of the book is about the planet itself, the world building. And then the latter half is a political thriller. And I enjoyed it when it was the world building part and talking about the day to day, and then did not really enjoy the political thriller part. It was still written really well, but I'm reading this book because I want to hear about the world. I do not care about the political thriller aspect. The main character, Kyle, is about 13 years old. He acts older and younger at different times, and he is neurodivergent. They call it a syndrome. They never say what syndrome it is, which I feel is a little off, but he is he's one of the best written characters I've ever read, but his age does feel like it fluctuates. And I feel like a story like this, where you're set in such an imaginative world, needs to focus on that imaginative world. When it started diving into human drama, didn't quite enjoy that. You know, looking at this cover in and of itself, let me pull this up here. Looking at this cover in and of itself, there's like this huge crocodilian monster, which also, I don't think I could match that to any of the monsters we read in the story, because they're basically dinosaurs. They're not dinosaurs, but they're basically dinosaurs. But anyways, huge crocodilian monster here, and then a guy here, a guy who's like, or a woman, might be a woman, drawn in this like pulp science fiction-esque silhouette, and it creates a sense of scale. And that's the one thing that like the world building I wanted more of. It wanted to portray a sense of scale and just could not do that, and I think that's hard in a writing. But either way, it created this amazing world, and I'd expect that, you know, I guess this is Kyle, is in the planet and is trying to survive in the wilderness. I wanted a survival wilderness in an alien planet story, and I did not get that. I got human colonizers surviving on alien planet, and then human colonizers trying to stop other human colonizers from being bigots on alien planet. And I think that's not the story that I wanted, or the situation that the characters would be in, especially because Kyle, who's 13, and his other two friends, who are also around 13, are trying to deal with the political drama. And I'm like, this feels like a YA sort of make kids a lot more important than they would actually be, which is not a bad thing. But in this world, with this crocodilian monster, I wanted to see someone try to survive in the world, and I didn't get that. And I struggle with liking this story. It's very gay as well, which is fun. And it was really long, and it felt like two different stories. At the midpoint, when they turn into this political drama, I don't care anymore. I don't care. I've seen a lot of the cool adaptations the humans do to cool technology to try to survive in this land. I want to see more drama about that man versus nature storyline, but it was a man versus man storyline at the very end of it, and I was just, I don't care. So yeah, it's a 3 out of 5 stars for me. Really good at the beginning. So yeah, Hela was the last book that I read of the month, asterisk, because the last book I actually started reading was The Accidental Hero by Myklusch. Did not finish. I stopped midway through. I was like, let me get to the midway point to be able to see if I want to keep reading or not. Did not want to. So because I've been reading through Septimus Heap, which was a series that I read when I was really young, when I was around 12, 13, I wanted to revisit Septimus Heap because I also found the books cheap online, and really am enjoying reading through Septimus Heap. And I also remembered, hey, there's also this one series about this kid with superpowers that I read when I was that age, and I really enjoyed myself reading that. I want to see if I could revisit it and also read, because I think I only read the first 2 books out of 3. And so let me finish this series. And I found it, bought it for cheap. And So this is it was previously published as Jack Blank and the Imagination, and so it's about Jack Blank, who is this 13-year-old kid. Actually, was he 13? Jesus, he's like 12 or 13. He is a young kid who is an orphan who all of a sudden discovers that he has powers and is taken to the Imagination, a place full of superheroes and supervillains. Ooh, and there is this huge war that was fought 12 years ago with robot parasites that can take over someone's body. And I definitely remembered loving this story when I was younger. But as I kept reading, I could not finish this story. Like I said, I got to the very midpoint and I was like, you know what? I am not invested in the characters. I feel like the characters were very exaggerated. The events were very exaggerated, and there was not a lot of nuance, and things were very black and white, and I didn't really quite enjoy it. And I just could not get my head around that this is such a young child. And again, this is a story written for children, and I'm reading it as an adult. It's not for me. And so I did not finish it because I want to use my time better reading other stories. And I don't want to turn people away from this book because I think it was important for me when I was younger, when I was 12, 13. This was published in 2010. I read it around 2013, 2012. It's really important for people at that age. But for me right now, just not for me. So sorry, it's a DNF for me. So yeah, that is all the books that I read in the month of May. A pretty spread out collection in terms of genre, a lot of YA, and a lot of time it's because some of the books that I added on my TBR, which I started in 2020, that's when I started adding books onto a TBR list on Goodreads, tend to be YA. And so after these last few books, like Hella, Providence, Quest, Flowers, some of those aren't YA, but they were definitely added on because of my sensibilities at that time. And so, yeah, I need to look at my TBR and be like, which books should I remove because they are YA and I just know that I'm not going to enjoy them. Looking forward to the next month. I have less books, less physical books to deal with next month, and so I'll start probably doing stuff using my library. Oh, I didn't finish the last book of Animorphs, the most recent book by Animorphs. That one's not going to be finished until next month, but it is what it is. I haven't started it, but my next read is Under the Skin by Michael Faber. This is, I think, the book, I'm pretty sure this is the book that became the movie Under the Skin, starring Scarlett Johansson. Starring Scarlett Johansson, and it's a psychological thriller of a alien who kills men. And I love the movie, love the soundtrack by Micah Levi. I also found it for cheap online. Whenever I say I found a book cheap online, I usually mean that I found it on thrift books for like $3 to $4. This was on thrift books for $3 to $4. I am not a premium member, but I have a membership there, and I'm like at a high level because I buy so much from this website. So yeah, I haven't started this book. I will start it in the last few days of this month, but I'll finish it in the first few days of January, February, March, April, May, June. And we'll talk about this in the June recap. But yes. And that is all the books that I will be talking about this video. Thank you so much for coming on this journey with me, revisiting the books that I read. Follow me on my Goodreads where I give slightly more in-depth thoughts about the books that I read. I'll put the link in the description below. Let me know if you've heard of any of these books before, what you think about them, if any of these books you want to read. I'm sorry if I spoiled it for you, but spoiler alerts. Oops. Don't forget to be passionate, and I'll see you later.